Welcome back, students. In the earlier lecture, we have developed this sidebar for finding valve, and in this lecture, we'll do the same for pipeline and buildings. So let's go to our code, and here this is the all for the valve, and I will copy this whole code and make a copy here. Okay, and inside this, and I will call it deep pipeline. Deep pipeline. And I will add some extra spaces between these two divs. So I will create an empty div, and maybe I will set the height to say 50 pixels. Okay. And here, the pipeline, and I will call it pipeline information. After that, the error will be pipeline error, and from group, it will be pipeline ID. Okay. Pipeline ID, and the placeholder will be again the pipeline ID. ID, the button with the ID find pipeline, and it will say find pipeline. Last one will be pipeline information. Let's save that, and after that I will create another copy of it for the buildings. So let's copy this whole thing with the space and paste it here. And this is our div, and I will call it div building. Div building. And this will be building information, text center, bold, error message, building error, and this will be building ID, placeholder. This will be I'll put the building account number. Let's make it a default building account number. And here I will say find building. Find building, and this will be building information. Building information. Okay, let's see that how our sidebar is appearing now. Our pipeline information, this is our building information. Find pipeline, find building, and find valve. And we have options to put data here. Okay, so now let's write the function to find any attribute. Now I write the function to query valve and search for the valve for us that the user will search. Okay, so let's do that. And for valves, I'll do that after in our valve section. This is our valve section, and I'll write that here. And I'll keep it separate so that the code is easy to understand. So here I'll use the jQuery method. So when our valve has been pressed, that is the default jQuery syntax, if you remember, and our find valve, or you can also inspect element from here if you want to search the ID of that. It has an ID of find valve. Okay, I often do that. I inspect it and get the ID from there, because many times I forget that which ID I have assigned to it. So when the valve has been clicked, an anonymous function will trigger, and what the anonymous function will do, the anonymous function will catch the valve ID that has been inputted by the user. So I'll call it valve ID, and let's catch the value that has been inputted by the user, and this field is called valve ID. Okay, so catch this with the method valve, and after catching that, we'll console log it to check that whether it is working or not. Valve ID console log. Okay, so let's try it first. You need to refresh after you make any changes in the front end in order to take effect. So let's write something. Okay, find valve. So it is working. We are changing and it is appearing on the console log. So far our code is working up to that point. Okay. So now I'll write a general function to find the valve and display it on the screen. Let's define the function here and later I'll write the function. So I will call the function return layer by attribute. Okay, return, I give the L capital letter. Return layer, you can give it any name, it doesn't matter. Return layer by attribute. Okay, and I will pass 3 parameters to this function. The first one will be the layer where we are loading the data. So we are loading the data into the valves layer and we have given the name valves, the layer. So the first one will be the layers. After that, the field which we want to have a match with, like for valves, we open our attribute table. We want to search for this valve ID. So I will give it this name, our column name in the attribute table. Sorry. So this is valve ID. As this is a string value, I drop it around to single quote. You can also use as a double quote, no problem. And after that, the value that we have cached from the input of the user. So I'll give it the valve ID. So as I said that this is a general function and we need to write that. Okay. So we'll write this general function. Let me split my screen into 2 so that I can see which parameters I'm giving it, and I will write the general function here. And I'm calling it a general function because I'll use the same function for finding my pipelines and also finding my building. So the same function will work for all the layers. So it makes your life really easy. So I'll call it general functions. And here I will write my return layer by attribute function. So let's write that function. Actually, I'll copy that so that I don't make any spelling error. Here, the first one will be the layer. Okay, this one is the layer. After that, this is the attribute name, and this is the attribute value. Okay, attribute name and attribute value. Let's see that whether our function is working or not. I'll just console log the layer to see that actually what is in the layer, that we are passing the layer or passing the valves into our function as a parameter, but it is a layer. It is a leaflet layer. So first, let's see how the layer looks. I'll just call the function and it will give me the layer in the console log. Okay, let's check that. There should be nothing on the console panel until I hit the find button. So let's put any valve ID, find valve. So this is the layer. It's the complete valves layer. I think there are multiple layers. You see that there are many layers here, and these layers have their options and their feature properties. You see, this is a layer. This is the valve ID, this valve ID, and after that again we have another feature. This one, feature properties. This one. Okay. So we are catching all the layers. Okay. So let's now we look through this layer and find the one that we are looking for. And in order to do so, we have seen that what is our layer. Actually, I'll keep that in the console log so that I can later show it that what I'm extracting from the layer. And I will define a JavaScript variable. I'll call it here all layers. Okay, all layers, and I will only get the layers, I'll extract the layer part from this layer. So I'll call layer.getLayers method. GetLayers method, and it will extract only the layers part. Let's see that what I meant. And I will put the all layers here. Okay. And now we'll be able to see the difference between this layer and what we are extracting from the layer by calling the getLayers method. Okay, so let's refresh it. Now sidebar. Let's write any valve ID. And this was our layer, and inside the layer, this was the layer. So it was a complete JavaScript, a complete Leaflet layer, but here we have only extracted the layer portion. And you can see there are 62 starting from 0. So there are 63 valves. And if we check our attribute table, here we have also 63 valves. So we are catching all the valve pairs. So this is our layers. Inside the layer, our feature, inside there are properties are in feature dot properties. Also you can copy like copy property path, and if you paste it here, feature dot properties, and this is the index 0. So feature dot properties that we need to catch. Okay, and I comment it out. Later we'll see the pattern from here. And now I will look through all these layers and find the one that we are looking for, or the user is looking for. So for here I equal to 0, I is less than all layers dot length, and I plus plus, it will increment by on. Look through the layers, so I'll call all layers. Sorry, all layers. Inside that, I'll give it the parameter. You see, index number. This is the index number. So for me, the index number is the I. Okay. After that, this is the this is the feature. Sorry. After that, this is our feature. After that, this is our properties. Okay. So feature dot properties. And inside the properties, we are interested in looking for the valve ID. We're interested in looking for the valve ID. So this is again an object, JavaScript object. So we can refer to any object by giving it the key name. So our key name is here valve ID. So after this point, feature the properties. After that, we will give it our key name, and the key name is here in the attribute name. If we look at the attribute name, we have given it the column name from our attribute table. So I will pass it here our attribute name. Attribute. Okay. And I will store all this data inside my another variable I will call retain value. Okay. And let's console log it to see that actually what we are getting now. Save it. Let's refresh it. Let's search for anything. Find valve, and you see now we are only getting the valve ID, and now we will match if the input from the user has a match with this ID, and if it has a match, then we will return that layer and later display that. Okay. So if the retain value equal to this valve ID that we are giving it, or the attribute value. Okay. Attribute value. Then what we'll do, then we will return that layer, which is the index, which has the index I. So all layers I. Return all layers, we return that layer, and later we'll do something with that layer. So return that layer, and if it does not match or does not find any match, in that case we will return false. Okay, we'll save that, and this should OR. Okay, let's remove this console log. I do not need this console log anymore. And also remove this portion, this portion. And now here I will define another variable to catch the value that has been returned. So let's assign another variable, maybe layer, and let's console log it that what we are getting here. Console log layer. Okay. Let's refresh it. And now if we try to find onto 3, I think it will return an empty array. It's still returning false because there is no valve ID with the ID onto 3. Let's copy a valve ID from here. Okay. And just copy this on and paste it here. After that, find valve. Now we are getting a complete leaflet layer. Okay. So we are able to catch a leaflet layer. In the next lecture, we'll do something with this leaflet layer and we'll make this layer separately visible on the map. So see you on the next lecture.